Hello and welcome to another Know the Terrain installment. This time we're going to be looking at what I've dubbed the French advance structure, which, as you might guess, commonly arises from the advance variation of the French defence, but arises from a large number of other openings as well. And just to clarify our terms initially, the simplest situation which this structure arises is here. So this is what defines what I've looked at for a couple of weeks now. This structure with white pawns on d4 and e5 against black pawns on d5 and e6 with an open c file. So black has traded pawns on d4. Now, when you see the structure initially, you might think that it's limited to the advanced French, but in fact, this is a structure which commonly arises from a large number of openings. For instance, the Caro-Kann, the advanced variation there, where, for instance, after c5, white castles, knight c6, c3, and exchanges on d4, we reach the same structure there. Staying within king's pawns openings for a moment, we also see it in the Sicilian, the Moscow variation, where after, for instance, these moves, and knight e4, we have an identical structure, but it's one which is also extremely important in queen's pawn openings. So we'll see examples from, for instance, the Catalan, where black plays with c6, b6, bishop b7, and white responds with knight c3, queen c2, e4, e5, and subsequently takes on d5. So that leads to the same structure. It also, we'll see, arises from the Queen's Indian defense, g3, and now, for instance, Tivyakov's favorite with c6, bishop g2, and d5, when again white will play with knight c3, perhaps rook e1, e4, e5, and can take on d5. And of the major openings in which the structure is very important, we should also mention the Slav, where it gives rise to a very important type of position here. So after these moves, bishop g3, for instance, castles, e4, bishop here, bishop d3, bishop h5, e5, knight d5, takes and takes. So we have the same structure here, albeit in each case, of course, there are certain differences in terms of the pieces remaining and where those pieces are placed. The reason why I decided that this pawn structure would be a good one to look at is because, firstly, of its relatively universal nature. As you can see, it arises from several important openings, but also because of the types of play which it gives rise to. The structure is one which offers quite clear plans for both sides. Clearly, the c-file is important, and while, as we'll see, normally just playing on the c-file isn't sufficient for either player. Clearly, the c-file is an attractive place to place one rook, and if one player manages to dominate the c-file, that will be a very important strategic asset. Beyond that, we see that the center is fixed and that white has a central space advantage. So this naturally leads white to try to play on the king side. He can do that in a number of ways, either by straightforward piece play or by advancing his pawns, often his h-pawn and sometimes his f-pawn as well. And in fact, black will frequently respond with f6 in his turn to try to undermine this strong white center. And in fact, that's another place where a lot of these games take place. So in the Tarrasch variation of the French, we'll see this featuring in several of the games as well, where black will play with f6. So white, for his part, has a relatively clear plan, but black has his own trumps, because the d-pawn, the white d4 pawn, is a target. It's one which can't be protected by any other pawns, and it's the only pure pawn weakness in the position. So it's something which black may hope to attack later in the game. Beyond that, black can take comfort in the fact that he doesn't have any weaknesses. And generally speaking, black has a relatively narrow range of strategic problems to solve in this structure. One of the main problems is his light square bishop, which certainly in the French tends to be a perennial problem. And we'll see different ways in which black seeks to address that. So whether it's by the Caro-Kann method of developing the bishop outside the pawn chain before playing e6, or we'll see certain methods where it can be activated even after e6. But black dealing intelligently with that bishop certainly improves his chances. Also, for black, we can talk about the general importance of simplification, because again, black has less space than white, and so exchanges of minor pieces will tend to free his position and make it more comfortable. So overall, it's a structure which I think leads to very interesting dynamic play, and leads to a number of key games. In fact, as we'll see in the course of this DVD, this structure has arisen in several very important recent encounters between top GMs, which I think are very instructive, both in terms of how to deal with this structure in particular, and also just how to handle the pieces in general. So I hope that you're interested in the structure, that you find some of the material worthwhile, and that you enjoy the DVD. Thanks very much for watching.